Are you the quiet guest waiting for me? Can I talk to you for a moment? As I was about to go into the restaurant, a lady in chef clothes came up to me looking serious. I wondered what she wanted to talk about regarding my meal. When I listened, I was shocked by what she said, and it made me feel really pale. My name's Emily Thompson. I'm 31 years old, and I work in advertising. It's tough work, but I enjoy making better ads. My husband, John, who's a year older than me, also works in advertising. We've been married for a year. We both work, so we share chores and help each other out. We manage our life pretty well. At first, we only talked about work, but over time we got closer. We found out we liked the same things and had similar values. I started to like him more than just a friend. When our project ended, I was worried we wouldn't see each other much, so I told him how I felt. I was really nervous because I'd never done that before. But he felt the same way, so we started dating. A year later, he proposed, and we got married. Before we got married, John told me he'd been married before and divorced. They were married for a year and didn't have kids. They split up because they didn't agree on things. It seemed like John was sad about it. He was a bit cautious about love because of what happened before. But I understood, and it didn't bother me. I just wanted to be with him. Our marriage was happy, but then I started to realize what it meant that John was divorced. After we got married, we moved close to where we work. John's parents live nearby, and we get along well. Our life together has been better than I thought. I was worried about living near my in-laws at first, but they'd always been nice to me because we both we're busy during the week. But on weekends, we spend a lot of time together. We both like cooking and trying new recipes. It would be nice to go out to eat sometimes too. But I have an allergy to certain fruits like strawberries and apples, which belong to the rose family. Even if a dish seems safe, these fruits might be hidden inside, making it hard for me to eat out. Even a tiny bit of contact with these fruits makes my skin turn red and swell. I feel bad asking about ingredients at restaurants and have started avoiding dining out because of this. I developed this allergy as an adult, which was surprising at first. I remember a time when I ate a lot of strawberries and my mouth swelled up, making it hard to breathe. Finding out about this allergy meant I could no longer eat my favorite fruits like strawberries, apples, pears, and peaches, which made me sad. I've had allergic reactions even after eating food I thought was safe, which made me more nervous about eating out or buying ready-made meals. This added stress to my life. Because of this, I became very careful about checking ingredients, even during meals with my husband. Although I felt sorry for always checking, I couldn't relax without making sure everything was safe. However, my husband and his parents understand my allergies, which has helped ease my worries. My mother-in-law especially has been very supportive. She researched my allergy and always makes sure our meals are safe, whether we eat at her place or go out. She goes the extra mile to ensure I can enjoy my meals without worry. Her kindness almost brought me to tears. I have a great relationship with my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, who treats me like her own daughter. My concerns about my allergies have lessened over time, especially since my work project was successful, earning me a promotion. Excitedly, I shared the news of my promotion with my family. They were all thrilled, especially my mother-in-law. While spending time with her, she invited me to celebrate at a fancy restaurant. I hesitated because it seemed too extravagant, even for a celebration. The restaurant was in a luxurious hotel nearby, which I had always dreamed of visiting since my student days. However, I remembered that they often use fruits from the rose family, which I'm allergic to. Despite my mother-in-law's kindness and genuine happiness for my promotion, I was hesitant. In the past, when dining out with my mother-in-law, we always informed restaurants about my allergy, but I felt guilty asking them to accommodate my dietary restrictions. So, we usually chose restaurants that rarely use allergenic foods. I worried that even if we informed this restaurant about my allergy, it might inconvenience them. Although dishes without these fruits would be safe for me, I feared that the kitchen might still process them, posing a risk. Ultimately, I declined the offer due to my concerns about having an allergic reaction. However, my mother-in-law was keen on the idea and assured me she would inform the restaurant about my allergy when making the reservation. She even mentioned having a connection there, which surprised me since neither she nor my husband had ever mentioned it. However, I assumed it wasn't something she boasted about, given my mother-in-law's enthusiasm and my genuine interest in the restaurant's cuisine. We decided to have lunch there together, considering it was a suggestion from my mother-in-law, who has always been considerate of my allergies. I felt relieved, thinking there was nothing for me to worry about. When I told my husband about this, he was surprised to hear that his mother had connections at the restaurant. He also mentioned that the restaurant sometimes serves fruit, and he appreciated their consideration for allergies. When I told my husband that my mother-in-law had informed the restaurant about my allergies during the reservation, and they would take precautions, he seemed relieved. "It's a celebration of your promotion, right? Make sure to enjoy yourself," he said with a laugh. Initially, I declined because of my allergies, but I had always admired the restaurant, so I was excited about dining there on the day I had been eagerly waiting for. Since it was a weekday, I took a half day off after finishing my morning work. I planned to head straight to the restaurant. Being a high-end place, I chose a more formal outfit than usual and paid extra attention to my appearance. When I arrived at the office, my colleagues noticed my attire and asked about my plans. When I told them about the meal, they wished me a good time. Excitedly, I headed to the hotel. As I entered the entrance, my mother-in-law was already there. The two of us headed to the restaurant on the first floor, and since we had a reservation, we were immediately escorted to our table. Our reservation was for 1:00 p.m. Due to the busy lunchtime rush, we were informed that our meal might be a bit delayed. Understandably, the restaurant was crowded, so I decided to order just drinks for the time being and wait patiently. Having already finished work and encouraged by my mother-in-law, I ordered champagne. We enjoyed our conversation while waiting for our meal. The champagne tasted better than any I'd had before, and with the effects of the alcohol and the excitement of dining at a long-awaited restaurant, I was in high spirits. Watching the delicious-looking dishes at neighboring tables only increased my anticipation. Suddenly, my phone rang from inside my bag, and I realized I hadn't turned it off during our meal. Seeing the incoming call was from work, I immediately sobered up, worried there might be a problem. Excusing myself from my mother-in-law, I stepped outside to take the call, ensuring privacy in case of sensitive information. The call was about a document I had submitted earlier that day, and my colleague urgently needed clarification. Relieved that it wasn't due to an error on my part, I answered their questions and wrapped up the call in about 5 minutes. As I was about to return to enjoy my meal, an unfamiliar woman approached me. She asked if I was the customer who had made a reservation for today's meal. Dressed as a chef, she seemed rushed and concerned. I was puzzled but answered her questions. However, her face turned pale, and she urgently told me to leave the hotel immediately, saying it was dangerous to go back to the restaurant. Suspicious of her intense demeanor, I asked for clarification. When I understood the situation, I felt the blood drain from my face. I quickly hailed a taxi waiting in front of the hotel and headed home. That evening, my mother-in-law called, furious that I had left her at the hotel and returned home without saying anything, causing embarrassment. My mother-in-law was furious about me leaving without a word, especially since she had reserved a special course to celebrate. She began to berate me, which was completely out of character for her. I had always seen her as kind and gentle, but she was yelling at me with such intensity that I started to doubt the image I had of her. Usually, I believed the kind mother-in-law I knew would be concerned if I left without saying anything, but now she seemed solely focused on scolding me. As she continued, she even criticized my parents and how they raised me. Her anger was so intense that I began to wonder if the rumors about her were true. Even as she yelled at me, I stayed silent, trying to process what was happening. Finally, when she seemed to calm down a bit, I quietly asked her about informing the restaurant about my allergies. She had assured me that she had done so, but the restaurant wasn't aware of my allergies at all. In fact, the meal they served had ingredients that I was allergic to, not just in the dessert, but also in the main courses. These allergenic ingredients were used in marinades and sauces, which weren't obvious just by looking at the food. The woman who approached me earlier had taken the reservation call from my mother-in-law and hadn't been informed about my allergies. She noticed the allergy badge on my bag and came to check, being the chef responsible for our meal that day. If she hadn't informed me, I would have unknowingly consumed the allergens, which could have led to a severe reaction. Initially, I doubted that my mother-in-law would purposely expose me to allergens, but considering the woman's actions and knowledge about my mother-in-law's true nature, I quickly believed her. This woman turned out to be my husband's ex-wife, Kate Young, who now works under her maiden name. She assumed I was the new wife because she believed my mother-in-law wouldn't have female friends, especially someone of a similar age. Before they married, Kate lived with my husband's parents and faced mistreatment from my mother-in-law. She, too, initially believed my mother-in-law was kind and gentle, but she realized the truth once they started living together. Kate wanted to discuss this mistreatment with her husband, but whenever he or my father-in-law wasn't around, my mother-in-law criticized her relentlessly for her housework and cooking. Despite her culinary skills from attending a professional cooking school, my mother-in-law still found faults with her dishes, even throwing them away sometimes. The ex-wife, feeling that her complaints would be ignored, aimed to gather evidence of her mistreatment by my mother-in-law. However, as a full-time housewife, she lacked funds and was constantly watched by my mother-in-law. Unable to gather proof and with no one to confide in, she felt trapped in her situation. So she chose to divorce and sought employment using her culinary license. Luckily, she landed a job at the restaurant, where she worked diligently and eventually became a full-fledged chef. Over time, her memories of mistreatment faded, and she found joy in her work. However, when my mother-in-law discovered her ex-daughter-in-law's workplace, she started frequenting the restaurant and discreetly threatened her for discounts. Despite declining some of her absurd demands, the ex-wife still felt pressure to yield to some due to past traumas. The connection my mother-in-law mentioned referred to the ex-wife. When I questioned why my allergies weren't communicated to the restaurant, my mother-in-law pretended not to know. She claimed she must have informed them, shifting the blame to the restaurant staff. However, knowing that the reservation call was handled by the ex-wife, it's likely that my mother-in-law deliberately didn't mention my allergies, intending to blame the restaurant. But I was already onto her game. Considering the restaurant's strict guidelines on allergies and the recording of calls for dispute resolutions, it was clear that they would have accommodated my dietary needs if informed. Facing the undeniable evidence, my mother-in-law, not anticipating recorded proof, fell silent. I pressed on, questioning why she hadn't mentioned my allergies this time. Until now, she had always been cautious and concerned about them. I couldn't imagine why she would act this way, given our previously good relationship. I sought an explanation, shocked by her behavior. After a brief silence, she defiantly shouted, revealing her envy and resentment towards me. She despised me for receiving praise at work and being more liked in the neighborhood than her. Arrogantly, she claimed that even if I spoke out, no one would believe me. Her outburst left me stunned. It was hard to believe she was capable of such actions. However, I had collected evidence to reveal her true nature and confronted her with it. Everyone present, including my parents and my husband John, had heard her berate me and admit to purposely exposing me to allergens. After leaving the restaurant, I had immediately gone to my parents' house and had John join us. We discussed our next steps when she called, so I swiftly switched the call to speaker and started recording it for evidence. As a result, we had her incriminating statements on tape. Taken aback by my revelation, she asked in a shaky voice if John was there with us. She never expected her son to find out. In response, John, who had been silent and emotionless while gathering evidence, spoke up. His suppressed anger was evident as he expressed disbelief at his mother's actions. She hastily began making excuses, but her desperate attempts seemed insincere, especially after her earlier outburst. His anger flared as he shouted not only towards Kate, his mother, but also towards her mistreatment of his ex-wife. John was really angry at his mom, Emily. He didn't even want to think of her as his mom anymore because he found out something bad about her. He was so mad that he decided to cut ties with her completely, even though she begged him not to. His parents said they would take legal action against her for something really serious, and John hung up on her without listening to her side of the story. When he told his dad about it, his dad was also furious and suggested getting divorced from Emily. They kicked her out of the house and left her with no money or family to help her. She pleaded with John to help her, so he got her a small apartment and paid the first month's rent. He told her to find a job, but she didn't seem motivated to work. Instead, she kept bothering John and his family for money. John was really stern with her and made sure she couldn't come back to their house. Eventually, she got a job at a supermarket, but she still seemed like she was having a hard time on her own. John and his wife, who's telling the story, hope that Emily will start taking care of herself and leave them alone. They think Emily was jealous of the wife because she was successful and well-liked in the neighborhood. Emily used to bully John's ex-wife, but now they're friends. John apologized to his ex-wife for not noticing the bullying sooner. She's moved on and is happy with someone else now. After dealing with Emily, John and his dad threw a party to celebrate the wife's promotion at work. She's determined to keep working hard without worrying about Emily anymore.